Wow, way better role. Way better.
Like, love it. I'm like,
Ready? Okay. This is Haley.
and this is Bailey,
And you're listening to Text Me When You Land. New year, new goals, new name. We changed our name. We are now Text Me When You Land. We have so many fun reasons why we decided to change our name, and we're going to dive into this episode, but we are so excited to officially kick off the new year with our new name, Text Me When You Land. Text Me When You Land's podcast is about navigating life after college and long-distance friendships and maintaining it. And maybe you have a 5-year plan, maybe you don't, but Bailey and I can definitely relate to not necessarily living life with a plan in mind. We kind of just go on a whim. And that's what we are here to kind of maintain and do. We've definitely grown a lot from this podcast, which is why we've changed our name. I am so excited about the change and our rebrand. There has been so many things we've talked about over the last year. Going into the new year, it feels like the perfect time to transition. And I feel like we've really grown into this during our podcast, and we have so many exciting things coming in this next year that I feel like the name change just felt so right, and we talked about it for a while, and I am just so excited about it. I feel like it's really hitting me right now as we sit here and we talk about all this. I feel like
it's
we both
true.
are, like,
it's real.
A little nervous and like excited, and it's a big change.
It definitely took us some time to figure out when to change our name. I just remember texting Bailey and being like, hey, I don't know if this is like a long shot like here, but I don't know, maybe what are your thoughts on changing our name? And she was like, I've been thinking about that actually. I'm like, I know it's kind of a big goal here. We've been sitting on it for several months now, and it's scary changing your name. It's a rebrand altogether, but Bailey and I have realized that it's just a part of who we are, and it definitely works with our new goals for the new year, which is kind of that navigating long distance friendships and life. And who doesn't text someone when you land? Like, I always like to know when someone's landing.
I feel like you use Text Me When You Land so much, especially when you're traveling all the time, or you have long distance friends, or you're traveling to family, away from family, towards friends, all these things. I feel like you're always using that. I literally was talking to my little cousin recently, and she sent me a text and it said, text me when you land. And I was like, see, everybody uses this all the time, and it's so exciting because
it's a fun way of connecting with people.
Yeah, it's such a fun way, and that's something that I feel like we've talked about so much in our previous podcast. This is season 4 of our podcast, and I feel like we've talked about so much of like how important texting is in relationships. If it's long distance, like with your significant other, if it's long distance with your friend, your family, whatever it is, if you have long distance relationships, you understand there is so much more that goes on behind the scenes to create those solid foundations that
so true.
Honestly, can be so overlooked when you don't have that. And it was something I had to learn when I became the long distance daughter, the long distance friend. And I feel like that's something we've learned and talked about so much on this podcast. And I'm so excited that our name is changing and we are rebranding.
Yeah. Well, what's really funny too is that with the whole long distance thing is that I've realized I've been training my whole life for this moment, because all of my relationships, except for one, I think I had like 6 relationships before I got married, ended in long distance. Like, they all involved long distance in some shape or form. So I'm very used to long distance relationships, but I know that a lot of people cannot tolerate those or don't like them. And so it's good that we have that experience. You have that experience long distance. I mean, and as our friendship as a whole, we definitely are talking about long distance here. And it's not just about relationships, it's friendships, especially. I think that's kind of more of an emphasis we put on this, because Bailey, I mean, she's living in an RV and I'm on literally the other side of the country. I mean, and it's not always easy.
No, it's not always easy. And even if you have a friend that lives down the street, or you're in different spots, like this relates to so many people, even if you're not a long distance friend, but this is how we got here and we became, so close. Yep. And I believe that long distance relationships in different ways create such a strong foundation because of my experience going through them. They're not easy, but they really challenge the relationship. It can be with family members, literally all these things. I feel like when you have to keep a connection when you are the long distance, it really helps you grow and create that solid foundation. And I have noticed how much better my relationships have become because of being long distance at some point with
everybody.
It's true. And one of the goals for the new year is we're wanting to include more fun ways for you to connect with those people that you may not see every day, or someone that, you know, you're in different phases of life, but you still want to stay in touch. And it's just those little things that can make a huge difference. Like over the holidays, we did a gingerbread decorating evening together over FaceTime. And then for Halloween, we painted pumpkins together over FaceTime. And it's just those little things that we want to try and include everyone in on more, and just see how you guys like to incorporate fun activities with someone that you maybe want to do that's not necessarily with you. Or even if they are, you know, maybe they're sick and or their kids are sick and you can't meet up with them. And so there are still multiple ways that you can connect with people. And one of the huge parts of our podcast is that there are so many different phases of life, and which is why we talk about how we never have a 5-year plan. Like we just don't have one, and we are constantly just kind of going through the emotions of life and just like going where the wind blows. Yeah, some people like to have a plan, but that's just not us. And it's hard sometimes, but we learn to really try to embrace that. And I mean, Bailey, you have some pretty crazy life things happening in the next week or so. And I mean, that's probably going into your new year.
Yeah, it's so scary. I mean, it's so exciting. Not scary. I don't know. I get overwhelmed.
It's both. It's both. It's definitely both.
I think it's so crazy. Evan's trials start on technically January 6th, but things start before it. But I think the scary / crazy part about it is just that it's been a lead up for the last 4.5 years for us.
Yeah, if you're not familiar, the trials are for the 2024 Olympics. Evan, I'll let you explain it, but that's what his trials are for.
Yeah, he has been campaigning for the 2024 Olympics in Formula kiteboarding, and I always say, like, we've been doing this, but he's been doing it. I've been traveling alongside, supporting him, but
we've been doing it. It's
I've
been doing it with him too.
I've been laying on the beach watching him kite, but it's all coming together next week. My family's flying out. His parents are flying out. It's just so crazy.
It's a whole thing. It's huge.
It's all coming together, and that's how I feel.
It's coming quick. It's coming quick. I mean, that's literally it though. But it's fun to see as these events get closer in our lives that, you know, our goals definitely change. And something that last year we did was we created vision boards and we had these hard goals, and we talked about being flexible with them for sure. But I think this year we're really trying to adjust our goals rather than them being so number based, to just kind of have them be more fluid and more, I don't know how to say emotional goals, but maybe that's the right way of putting it.
That's actually really interesting, because right before this podcast, Evan and I were talking. He was explaining it to me, and I was like, oh, that's so much more what I want to set my goals for going into the new year, was things you're going to do to get to that big thing, instead of it being just based on this one thing and that's exactly how it has to go. It's these little things that add up to it. And I think something that I felt last year was so numbers based, and it just felt like everything else at some point was lost in that. And I didn't like that. And I was comparing my worth to it. And I was like, this is so not me. And I was able to step back and kind of reset. And then I was able to actually make progress with my goals, because it wasn't so focused on the number. It was focused on the bigger picture. And that helped me so much.
I love that. It's a checkpoint, kind of a more obtainable thing to work towards, because I feel like often we can't always control the goals that we have set, like whether if it's a certain income or a certain, I don't know, job that you want or whatever it may be. You can't necessarily control how those turn up. And yeah, it's great to work towards them, but it's also good to remember, like, okay, I want to make sure I stay happy while working towards this goal. Like making sure that if you do have a hard goal set, that it's not going to be something that will, like you said, question your self-worth, because you don't, at the end of the day, let's say you hit that goal, but your self-worth is completely destroyed, like along the process, because you beat yourself up doing it, then that's going to counter defeat the goal.
I realized that so much this year when things were too number based. If it was Instagram follower count or a view count or money count, whatever it was, when things were too based on that, I feel like no matter, even when I hit those goals, I wasn't as happy as I thought I was going to be, because it was like, oh, what's the next thing? Where I feel like when you're happy and enjoy, it's just like we talk about so much, like enjoying life, enjoying the small things to get to those big moments. It's the same things with goals. And I think if you're enjoying those little things to get to those big goals, it's so much more exciting than when it's all based on this, oh, when this happens, I'm going to be happy. And it's like, no, that's not how it's going to be. It may be for a second, but then you're going to be distracted onto the next thing and you're not actually going to enjoy it or enjoy the process to get there.
Definitely. What is something from this last year that you think you did really well in, or something that you progressed in that you would consider yourself a win?
I feel like this year was a huge growing year for me, and I talk about like my self-growth journey so much, but I feel like I found myself in ways I didn't really know I'd be able to, and like I actually am slowing down and enjoying the process, and that's something that I feel like is really hard. I don't know, I feel like it's a big topic at our age of those big things and the next thing and the next thing, and I feel like I've actually like worked hard on myself to slow down, enjoy the process. And that comes from so many things I was doing behind the scenes of running, going to therapy, like all these, those are just things off the top of my head. But all those little things that I was enjoying along the way got me to that point to be where I am now. And I feel like I've grown into a completely different person this year from the beginning of the year.
Definitely. You've had a lot of things you've really overcome, but also you can just tell there's a lot of change within you. I mean, if you know, I know you on a very personal level, and so I can see that. But from like our followers, they're probably like, I have no idea. But it's like everyone
they're
has
like,
those. Yeah, that cool. But that's really great, and I'm glad that you're able to take time to actually reflect and see that, because a lot of people will be like, well, another year has come and nothing's changed. And I'm really thrilled to hear that you actually can see the changes that you've made and progressed towards this year.
It's so exciting. And it's so, when you really do start to pay attention to those little things, I feel like it makes such a big difference. And I feel like I've been talking about this so much because I'm like, oh my gosh, if this made such a big difference in my life, how much can it help somebody else? And talking about it and sharing what's working for me, and it's going to be different for everybody. But finding those things that work for you and make you feel so excited about life and those little things really can make a big difference in your everyday, your mundane everyday.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, wait, but now I have a question. Sorry, were you going to say something? I was going to ask you, what was your goal that you feel like you achieved this year?
Oh,
I didn't want to
that's good.
skip over that.
I've really kind of come out of my shell of being scared. I mean, I definitely I'm like way more introverted, and I have a lot of superstitions and I don't know, fears and anxiety, especially like because I went to Paris and I went to dinner by myself. That was huge. I went to a workout class with you and tried Pilates. Like, these things sound like such small accomplishments, but for me, that is a really big deal. Like, and being able to push myself out of my comfort zone and to actually like see that I do have the ability to be strong and try these different experiences. And I actually ended up finding that I really enjoyed taking myself out to dinner, and it was just me, and it was in a foreign country. That was a whole experience in itself, but also like going to Pilates with you, that was fun. I mean, it's really cool to be able to try these things that might scare you, and that's kind of been what my goal is for like the whole year, is to live a life that wonderfully scares me, is kind of my theme. And I don't know. I mean, I can thank you for a lot of that stuff. You definitely pushed me in more ways than I'm comfortable, but I'm grateful for it in the end.
I'm so glad. And I feel like there has been so many, I was actually going to bring that up, in situations where we've been able to push each other because we have each other, even though we're not near each other and we are long distance friends. We've been able to push each other to do those things that are maybe scary, or maybe to push ourselves out of our comfort zone. But it's been so exciting to see how our friendship has pushed us to be a better version of ourselves. And I think that shows so much. And yeah, there's, you can have somebody push you, but you have to be ready. You have to be ready for those changes. And I think it's so exciting to see. I feel like you have grown so much in those ways, and you have pushed yourself to try new things. And that's what I think is something like going into the new year, create realistic goals. I think sometimes we set such high expectations that just on January 1st, our whole life's going to change and we're going to, be this different person. And it's like, no, it's still just another day. And yeah, it's a great time to set new goals, but let's set realistic goals that feel like you walk away accomplished. Like you said, maybe to somebody going out to dinner doesn't sound like a big deal, but to you it was. And that's what's most important. It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks about your goals.
By myself. It wasn't just going out to dinner. It was by myself.
By herself.
Yeah, I can't going out to dinner. It was not a big deal, guys. That's hilarious. Well, I'm really excited for these upcoming episodes. I'm really excited for our rebrand. I think that this is a great way to start the new year. We've said that, and text me when you land is going to be huge for us. And you know what? If you text that to someone, I hope you think of us every time
you say, text me when you land.
I know. I love the name. It's such a perfect fit for how much we travel, our long distance friendship, and just so much we're going to be talking about this year in our podcast. And I can't believe it's officially season 4 of our podcast.
I know, that's so crazy.
It was all so new. I know, it's so crazy. And now we're going into the new year with season 4, a new name, new goals, and it's so exciting.